Okay, thank you for doing that, Raki. So it is 11 o'clock Central Time. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today to celebrate International Women's Day. Yay! We have a wonderful plan for the next 2 hours. I couldn't think of a better partnership to celebrate today than bringing the WISIS and SheLeadsTech Chicago communities together to amplify our common mission of empowering and elevating women. Oh, I love all these applauses and the hearts and everything. Yes, that's the spirit. Okay, couple of logistics quickly. We are offering 2 CPEs for this session. And if you have logged in or registered with your ISACA credentials, the CPEs will go straight into your My ISACA account. Otherwise, you will receive a certificate via email in the next few days, I would say. If you have any questions on the CPEs, please go ahead and reach our communications team, which is through email at communications@chicago.isacachapter.org. And for those of you who are not familiar with our SheLeadsTech Chicago program, I would like to highlight that our goal is to elevate more female leaders in the digital space. Through our programs, through our initiatives, we are empowering women to enhance their professional skills and advocate for their career advancement. Our core program for the Chicago area, for SheLeadsTech Chicago area, it's called SheLeadsTech with Expertise and has 3 core pillars: expertise, retreat, and inspiring women. And we have designed today's session, today's event around the 3 pillars. And I'm going to go over that in a minute, but I would like to give an opportunity to our WISIS partner for a few words. So passing the mic to Shahia.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you for the opportunity for collaborating on this great day. So happy International Women's Day to everyone on the call, and welcome to the session. Women in Cybersecurity Chicago chapter is excited about this opportunity. If you're not aware of our mission, so WISIS, so Women in Cybersecurity goes by WISIS. So WISIS is a global community, an international community of women, allies, and advocates that are focusing on enhancing diversity in our cybersecurity area. So what do we mean by that? We have programs in place, professional development workshops, career development workshops, to bring women together so they can learn more about cybersecurity. So we recruit more women, we retain more women during their career span, and of course, help them grow into those leadership roles. And the Chicago chapter focuses a lot on local networking. We bring the community together, build those bridges so women get comfortable, get acclimated with what's happening in our community, and build the networks that will help them achieve their goals. We have had some really great responses from women who have come to these sessions and felt, this is a safe space for me to share my experience as a cyber professional, also to share my challenges in the cyber world and learn from each other. So if you're here, I'm glad you're here, and I'm looking forward to learning more about others in the call, as well as we build that network and what I call build the tribe. So thank you again for the opportunity, and WISIS Chicago is excited to partner with SheLeadsTech in future events.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Shafia. So like I mentioned, because we have designed today's event around 3 pillars, we are going to start with an inspirational panel. It's called Women Shaping the Cybersecurity Landscape. It's part of our expertise pillar, and it will be moderated by Raki. Following the panel, we have invited Donna to go to guide us through meditation. So we have 15 to 20 minutes today to stay with to listen to Donna and be part of the retreat pillar. Our inspiring guest speaker is Kat Fitzgerald. She's going to be covering the topic of the road InfoSec traveled. And that would be from 12:10 until 1 p.m. Central Time. And with that, passing the mic to Raki to start the panel discussion.
Thank you, Ramona and Shafia. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to our East Coast attendees. And I also see some international guests. So good evening to you guys. So the first segment is under the SheLeadsTech pillar. And this is a 50-minute panel discussion. I'm Raki Vaidya. I work with American Family Insurance, and I have the honor to moderate this session today. We're going to ask some predefined questions to the panelists and then move to the audience Q&A, and then we'll hear closing remarks from the panelist. So first, let me introduce these amazing panelists. The first one is Shafia. I think you heard her introduce Vices a few minutes ago. She's currently serving as a director for the supply chain cybersecurity risk management at Johnson Controls and possesses a background in information security and network services and product management, with a master's in electrical engineering and an MBA in management and finance. She holds industry certifications of CISSP and CISM. Shafia is deeply committed to product and data security as well as consumer privacy, and emphasizes the importance of a system-based approach in ensuring resilient and secure product. Welcome, Shafia. Our next panelist is Rosalind. She holds a position of cybersecurity operations manager at the AZEC company, having previously held leadership roles in IT operations and cybersecurity at an asset management firm. She also carries an impressive 7-year track record at the FBI, managing IT infrastructure and information security. Rosalind holds a master's in science and criminal justice and cybersecurity and a bachelor's in information systems and a CISSP certification. Welcome, Rosalind. Our next third panelist for today is Ramona, who introduced us to the SheLeadsTech program during the kickoff. Currently, she leads this global cyber attack tabletop exercise program and the cyber workforce development practice at Zurich Insurance. She spearheads transformative cybersecurity projects for organizational resilience. Ramona is also an adjunct professor at the DePaul University and a board strategic advisor for our Isaka Chicago chapter. She also heads our SheLeadsTech program with expertise in information security, governance, and risk management. She holds certifications of CISM and CISA, reflecting her own impactful leadership in this field. Welcome, Ramona. Last but not the least, our host is Marilyn, our panelist is Marilyn, who's the head of application security at Motorola Solutions. Committed to ensuring the safety and security of public safety customers, Marilyn has developed comprehensive security strategies, including a corporate-wide secure SDLC framework and a company-wide vulnerability management program. With a master's degree in computer and information security and over a decade in sales management expertise, Marilyn's dedication to security and education positions holds her as a valuable leader in an industry. So welcome all of you. We'll now move on to the questions. So I want to start with Rosalind and Shafia. Let's talk about women in cybersecurity. Could you talk about a project that you're involved with that impacts the cybersecurity landscape? And if you could also share a success story with us from your career that emphasizes your unique contribution as a woman in this space.
Sure, I can start. Hi everyone. So for me, when I actually saw this question, it was difficult for me to actually pick a project, and this is not trying to toot my own horn, right? Like, I've had a lot of successful projects, and I think the overall is that the fact that I've been here for 20 years in the IT and cybersecurity space, to me, is a big success, right? Because along those 20 years, I've come across a lot of challenges, a lot of issues, and the fact I've always produced work, always great work, right? And whether if it was saving money, reducing risk, improving processes, and but at the same time, I've also encountered like challenges during that time, and it was disheartening, right? And just to give you like just a couple of examples, right? My time at the FBI, I was working on our usual security sweeps, and there's been countless times where people, and specifically some FBI agents, who would come to me, and while I'm doing work on the floors, they'll hand me their trash can, right? Because they assume that I was the part of the custodial staff. There's been times where VPs have, in meetings, have called me out specifically, just me as being the only woman in the room. Rosie, can you just repeat what I just said to you? And there was these things where, like, I know that I'm producing great work. I know that I'm completing these projects successfully, and then you have these things where you second guess yourself. But why I brought up all these different examples is because despite these challenges, I continue to persevere, and that's what I think women, and we all seen this. We all seen amazing women, and even here, the women bring a unique blend of resiliency, perspective, resourcefulness, problem-solving skills, and leadership skills into the cybersecurity space, and we've seen that multiple times. So that's kind of where, like, I had projects, right? And I can give like a specific example of my most recent project. Make sure I'm good on time. But yeah, so it's one of the, at a previous organization where there was this organization has been around 12 years, and I was brought on board to kind of take a look at like their processes and things like that, and noticed that the MSP that was on board, it wasn't actually meeting their SLAs. They were not patching systems. They were leaving unpatched systems on our network. The vulnerability scans weren't being completed only on internal systems, and everyone was working from home, so they weren't scanning devices at home for vulnerabilities. And so I identified those gaps, right? And I brought that to the attention. We were able to recover finances, of money based on those missed SLAs. But just going back to, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking quickly, but just going back to some of those things, is that's what women bring. We're very resourceful. We persevere despite all the challenges, and we're problem solvers. Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Rosalind. And just to build on that, right? Rosalind brought up really good points about how women think, the skill set we bring to the organization. So similar to her, I have a 20+ year career in technology, started as a software design engineer and moved into my current role. Over the span of this entire career, there are multiple success stories, but then there's also the success stories set against what are the things you had to overcome. And for each of us, there is an individual perspective of challenges and successes. I think I can speak for most of us. We take pride in what we put out there, what we deliver, and we want to make sure it's 150% of our effort is reflected there. That at least has been my focus throughout my career. If there is my name against it, I want to make sure that deliverable, that outcome is exceptional. And at that point in time, I have invested every effort I could to make sure that it meets the business requirements. So my focus has been very much on understanding what is the business requirement. At the end of the day, technology exists to support a business. IT, cyber, regardless of how you label it, our existence is still to deliver a business outcome, to support our customer. So start with the customer focus. Understand who is the customer and why the business even exists. Then delve deeper into understanding what you are required to do within the capability you have available at that point in time. We all like to have this wish list of projects and tools we want to deliver on, but the reality is we all have limited budgets, limited resources, and limited support, in fact, in different areas of the organization. So the one thing that I, at least based upon just the question that you asked, Raki, the most recent one that I really like to talk about is around setting up a greenfield function. So supply chain cybersecurity is not something that has often been on the radar of many companies. It has been kind of funneled under governance, maybe under risk management, maybe it's called third-party risk. But in the recent years, think Log4j, think SolarWinds, or Colonial Pipeline. Those are the different areas of you start putting together. You start recognizing the challenges we have of supply chain, the risk we have in that, and how security plays a role in understanding those risks and actually mitigating them. So I was brought in. My current role is as the director of supply chain cybersecurity at Johnson Controls, and I was brought in to set up that function. Not that they were not doing it, they were doing it, but they were doing it in different parts of the company. And my intent was to pull it together, create a function, and deliver on it. That did happen within a span of 12 months. And that also then started increasing the focus with the customer focus being the starting point, and then understanding how technology plays a role in it, how cyber plays a role in it, and then how we as a team can deliver on that. So I think from my perspective, regardless of whether you're a woman, the key focus should be, what are you delivering? Who is it impacting? What is the value? Once you start at that point and utilize your other skill sets, the ones, resiliency, how we look at it, how we triangulate issues, how we resolve them, kind of just adds strength to that deliverable that you're giving back to the company, adds that incremental value that you bring to the team. So try to start with the big picture, but of course, build your strengths into it.
Awesome. Yeah, oftentimes technology is considered technology and we don't really consider those business aspects. So thank you both of you for sharing your thoughts. I know some people have raised their hands, so just wanted to let everybody know before we go on to the next question, is that there is a Q&A button. Please go ahead and submit your questions there. We are going to move to the audience Q&A so that the panelists are able to share their thoughts in an uninterrupted manner. I think somebody also asked about CPs. We're not going to release any poll. At the end of the session, we would be giving the CPs, as Ramona said. So let's move on to the next question. So I think we heard from Rosalind and Shafia that they have had that journey, but they've also had their challenges. I would maybe want to talk to Ramona and Marilyn, if you could share what are the common misconceptions that are there for women in technology, and what do you propose we address, and how we dispel these myths?
Yeah, I can get started, and Marilyn, please jump in. I think there are two misconceptions that I believe we all seen. The first one, women lack the technical skills needed for technology roles, which can hinder their ability to attain leadership positions in the predominantly male tech industry. To overcome this misconception, I encourage women to show their abilities and expertise, and by delivering like hands-on sessions, by engaging in webinars, engaging in writing articles, contribute to blogs, engage in speaking sessions during conferences or events, even events like this, right? The second one is lack of assertiveness. Many times, women are called out for not being assertive enough. And to overcome this, I'm proposing, first of all, self-awareness, right? So we need to be aware of, is that really the case, right? If so, there are programs, there are like trainings, there are techniques out there to help women communicate confidently and assertively in various situations. Second, surround yourself with supportive peers, with mentors, with allies who can provide encouragement, who can advise you, who can advocate for you in challenging situations. Build that strong support community that will boost their confidence and that will support resilience. And the third one, lead with expertise. Lead by example. I'm so used with our program, with expertise program, like lead by example. Okay, so demonstrate assertiveness behavior through your actions, through your communication style. Serve as a role model for other women by advocating for yourself first and for others in the workplace. So those two, like the lack of technical skills and the lack of assertiveness is something that comes as misconceptions in our field more obviously. Marilyn, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I think you're spot on too. I think that the most common one that we've probably all are aware of, and I'm sure everyone on the panel has experienced, I heard Rosalind even mention it, is that the skill's not there, right? Women are not technically inclined. We're left-brained, right? All these misconceptions or stereotypes. But even further than that, and it starts younger, we're just not interested. Women, girls are just not interested in tech, right? There's not an interest there. And even when we are and I've seen this a lot in women or the young girls that I mentor at university programs, right? When they are in computer science programs and they are in these technical engineering fields, what I see is even when they've gone through and even in the workforce, this carries on through the workforce, right? So when you're younger, it's like, you're not really interested in this, right? You're probably more interested in these other things. But then carrying on even throughout university and workforce is when you are in those technical roles, oh, well, maybe you want to PM the project, right? So when I see them working on these projects, they're not doing the technical work. They're not assigned to the technical components of the program or the project. They're getting more tasked with maybe you want to do some of the soft skills, stakeholder engagement, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's your choice, right? But what I'm seeing more is that this is what's being assigned or what's being assumed, right? Based on gender. And that's where I think the problem happens, right? Because then you start internalizing that. Well, maybe this is what I should be. This is where I should be. Maybe this is where my role is in this thing. And even in some of the basic, based on girls I work with and women I work with, and from a mentoring perspective, but even in the workforce, one of the things that I think that we need to make sure that we're doing is being clear about what we want upfront, kind of advocating. And I am very upfront. I want technical work. I want to be on the technical projects. I want to work on these. You have to be clear and you have to advocate for yourself. Don't assume that somebody else is going to know that, right? So be clear and be open. The other thing I would say, sometimes we're afraid, oh, it's technical. I don't know all these details. Nobody knows. I've learned that over the years. Nobody knows, right? Don't be afraid if you don't know. Get in there and learn, because that's what everybody's doing, right? So don't feel like I have to have this all figured out. If not, I'm not going to be able to do that, right? So don't have those fears. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid not to know. As long as you have the desire and the openness to learn, and you're going to put the time in to do it, go for it. And something that Ramona mentioned, I'm going to double on too, is find sponsors, not just mentors, but find sponsors, people that are going to advocate for you, people that know your intention, people that know what you want, people that you can be clear with, that can be in rooms that you're not in meetings that you're not in, and say, no, 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 she wants these kind of projects, and put your name up for these types of things that you're really looking for, and help advocate for you and kind of help put you in those positions that you want. The other one that I'm going to say that I think is a big one too, in terms of a misconception or a stereotype, is women are not as committed to their careers, especially if you're a mother or you have a family, right? Your priority is work-life balance, and that's the only thing. And that might be the case, but again, we're talking about assumptions, right? So when we're talking about these assumptions that you're going to come in and you might not want to, how does this impact long-term careers? Again, how does it impact what projects, promotions, and things that you're up for? These biases are going to impact that, right? So I think, again, we need to be clear on that. And some of the ways that not just women, because the responsibility isn't just on us, but I think on our allies and on our peers, right? How do we all combat this? Number one, we all have, I believe, some sort of biases or stereotypes, right? But and that's okay, but you got to be aware of it, right? It's that self-awareness piece. And then once you have that awareness, now how do we work on that, right? So sometimes I really believe proximity is the best way to kind of combat these things. And I've had people and allies and coworkers, largely men, who have worked with me and have said that in their interactions with me over a specific amount of time, they've learned more than all of the reading or, things that they could have gone through, right? Kind of get exposed to people. And in that, I think Shafia mentioned this too, start to understand that groups are individuals. We need to view people as individuals. I'm a woman, I am a Latina, I'm a lot of things, but I don't speak for everyone, right? And again, like I said, what I want and how I want my things, let's look at people's words and their actions, not at the groups that we think they represent. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be assigning stereotypes instead of individual, addressing this person as an individual. So I think those are the areas. And again, it helps in developing that empathy and that understanding, right, at the larger level as well. So
Awesome. Yeah, I almost felt like my mentor was telling me what I am missing. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I think many of these misconceptions are known, but I think the way that both of you expressed how we can dispel them or overcome them, thank you for sharing those thoughts. Let's move on to the next portion. So Madeline, Shafia, I know that a lot of women in particular face hurdles when they are working in the technology portion. Can you share some of the practical strategies that you have found effective for especially promoting inclusion in the security field?
Certainly. Let me start with some of the things that I do, and as an individual, going back to Madeline's point, right? Like I need to do certain things as individual, and then I certainly need to be doing that for my team and how I make sure my team is inclusive. So it has to be on both ends. So let's start with the individual itself. I think personally, this is my personality, so it just could be for me, or honesty and being upfront. Be absolutely clear about what is it that you can deliver and what is your capability. So do not overdo it, right? Like you want to take on challenges, go for it, but be very clear. I need a learning curve. I need that time period to learn. So do not set yourself up for failure. Be very clear. Just because I'm a woman, I'll be taken down a notch. So I'm just going to go ahead, take it on and do it. So do not do this. Do not derail yourself as an individual. Set a target, be very realistic about it, be open and honest about it. There are biases in our environment. We have a bias ourselves against others. We will assume, or we will not get the support I need from my management for a training that you need. You will assume that you might not get the support from your peers because you are learning. Don't assume. Do not go with that assumption. Give yourselves the credit and give others the credit. If they know that you need or seek that help and need the support, people will step in. That's what I've learned from my allies. I never knew that. I wish someone had told me that they needed it and I would do it. I just was not thinking that way. So do not assume, be open, be honest, set expectations in a manner that help you grow as an individual and as a leader. Then on the other hand, right, that tends to become your motto for your team as well. Be that open, honest person, that open door for your team to come in, talk to you about the challenges, and then you create that inclusive environment. For me, inclusion is not just about race, gender. It's also about thought process, the thinking, the different skill set you bring in. So the team has to be very inclusive in nature, and you create that inclusion by being very open and honest with each other. And also then bring each other up. So don't just focus on a siloed approach, even as a leader. So I like to balance both when I'm looking at myself, I'm going, where I want to do this with my team member, and how do I want to be treated by my leadership? And both ends of the spectrum are very subjective. You are going to have a team of 10 people with different personalities, different approaches of how to do things. Put your bias away. As a leader, put your bias away, really relate to them as people, see where their strengths are, and help them grow. And that's how you become inclusive, is really acknowledge the fact, the very basic fact that I as an individual am biased and people around me are biased. And I'm going to help myself overcome the bias, and I'm going to help those around me overcome that bias. And that is going to start with, being very self-aware. I think Ramona used the word, like, be self-aware. And that self-awareness of yourself as well of your team really is going to help you become more inclusive.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Madeline, is there anything you want to add?
yeah, so I mean, I think in terms of strategies that I think we should employ to kind of promote inclusion. So I kind of spoke about some of them before. I think when we're looking at even some of the major issues that we're combating, right, whether it be, am I technical enough? Am I, can I handle this? Or am I not going to do the job because I've, have personal commitments? I think that one of the biggest things is really being upfront, is communicating, advocating. And sometimes we're not comfortable doing that, right? That's a skill I think I had to really hone over the years, right? And being able to not feel that I'm somehow out of place, right? So it's really advocating for yourself and letting folks know, because again, don't make the assumption that people know what you want to do or what you're looking to do, right? Go ahead and be clear with that. I'd also say that, you know, when from a leadership perspective, and even on my team, one of the things I've seen is when I'm trying to fill in the team, looking for diversity of thought, like Shafia, you know, representing, and different people from different backgrounds. Like she said, diversity isn't just about gender or race. There's also, you know, different backgrounds or different things that can come in that can amplify the voice or kind of bring in different perspectives. And I see this a lot when we're problem solving, right? When we're trying to figure out, we're all trying to solve very complex problems, and just in cyber and tech, right? And a lot of these things have never been solved, because if so, we wouldn't be there trying to do that, right? There's not. So we're trying to solve some complex problems, and sometimes just the same old way of thinking about it is not going to give any breakthroughs, right? So the folks sometimes that are more quiet, when you see someone that might not be speaking up as much, or might kind of take them off, right, in your team, and encourage them to speak, get their thoughts, and encourage them as well to contribute. And what I've seen is when I've done that, and even the folks who you would think maybe the more junior or the quiet ones, those are where we have the breakthroughs, right? Those are where we see, oh, that's a great idea that might lead to something that will get us where we're looking to go. So I think kind of identifying folks that might not be sharing as much from different perspectives, getting them in the conversation, building them into those conversations, I think helps. And then others see that too, and then they feel comfortable, right? It's kind of creating that psychological safety in your team where people can come and they can all kind of be their selves. And I think Shaki also mentioned that also comes through you modeling that yourself, right? You being that person, you being willing to be wrong or not know, or say, you know, how should I do this, right? And so I think it's I think those are ways, strategies that we can employ.
Just to build a little bit on what Marilyn mentioned, right? There is also one thing that I feel women take on or are hesitant to take on, the burden of educating others around them. Like, you know, that empowerment, that enablement that we're talking about, we need to share where we stand for others to know. Let's not just assume people know where you stand. So we had talked about, oh, you want to take on highly technical roles. You want to take on leadership roles. Like, as a leader, where do you stand? To role model for your team, you really have to do that. You do have to take on some of that burden of being open and honest and training those around you, saying, hey, these are the challenges others in our team face. These are the challenges women face, or these are the challenges who are coming in early career entrants face. So be very, very clear about that communication, that little bit of training that you would offer to others around you. Do even reverse mentoring. Make sure that your leaders hear that. This is the challenge I face. This is the challenge my team faces. Being a person of color, being from a diversity group, or just being somebody new to this area, right? That burden of training, I feel like inherently we stay away from it. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to tell them about this. I really don't want to take on that responsibility of being the bearer of bad news or bearer of something you have to do more. But just stepping into that space will really help enrich the the interactions you would have, regardless of which area of career you are in.
I love that we are looking at it from different perspectives, not just like women, but I think earlier career or other aspects too. And I think love the challenging portion so that our work is well thought rather than just being unidirectional. So thank you for sharing those. So I know both of you talked about what we can do as leaders or what we can do for our team. But Rosalind, Ramon, I would want to hear your opinion. What do you think could be an effective strategy that there's an organization can adopt to encourage more women to pursue and succeed in technology leadership roles?
Rosalind, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go. There's actually a lot. I spent 7 years at the FBI, and one of the things is what everyone's here is kind of saying is you have to advocate for yourself. I didn't have a mentor or a sponsor there. It's one of the reasons why I left. I felt stuck, and so I was more strategic when I decided to for my next position. And so when I was looking for a position, what I did was did investigation on the not investigation, but like research on the organization, and looked at their leadership, who's in their leadership, right? And when I decided to pick the last organization I was at, they had 7 women in leadership roles, and it was outside of HR, right? They had women in finance, leader, and I was like, I think that sends a powerful message, organizations, when you display that you have women in leadership roles and you actively display that. And that was for me why I went to that organization. It's like, if they have all these women in leadership roles, then I know that this is an organization that helps foster and that doesn't have, I mean, of course, like there's bias, but I know that I feel like I'm going to be more successful here. And it was true. Like I spent 2 years there under a great mentor and she actually ended up becoming a sponsor, and she gave me projects to help showcase my skills and highlight that even more. And it was one of the best things I ever did. So I think promoting female representation in leadership is critical for organizations to help encourage more women in leadership roles, because it's going to attract talent. And then also providing like what we mentioned, it's an actual defined program of mentorship, sponsorship for women, right? Not just like a lackadaisical, like, okay, here, just meet, once a month. It actually has to be a defined program, I think. And yeah, those are like some of the top things. And as far as hiring panels, that was another big thing, is having a diverse hiring panel, not just 2 people from, one department, just a wide range of people and in those hiring panels, because to overcome some of those biases that we all have, right? And I think those are some ways that organizations, but some of the things that the organization can implement to just attract women and help promote them, encourage them into leadership roles.
Yeah, great points, Rosalind. And just to build a little bit on the mentorship program that you mentioned, I think most organizations have mentorship programs in place, but unfortunately many times these are like starting hard, right, and then they are not appropriately maintained. So having a good established and robust program that is easy adaptable to the needs of the mentees within the organization, it is key. And encourage those mentors, the mentors that you are recruiting as part of the program, to go one step forward and advocate for females, right? Propel and impact their career journey. Mentors that will help them integrate and find opportunities. Mentors that sometimes they become sponsors, right? So I think Marilee mentioned the sponsorship, or Shafia, how important that is in an organization. Sometimes the mentors may be a sponsor as well, depends on the area, and promote mentees' skills and achievements to others. They speak, find those people that they speak about you in a room where you are not part of, right? Additionally, or another idea would be designing or defining an internal online platform to foster the expansion of professional connections, especially when you are I mentioned online, if you are a global organization, right? Then coordinate networking events, define platforms for technical training for females and cross-training, define programs for women leaders, and encourage everyone to attend industry events like we do have today, where we all get together. We try to create this safe environment where we can share our ideas and learn from each other. And one important piece of all these programs is to go ahead and measure them over time, right? You want to see if they are effective, if, are there any benefits? Are there any areas of improvement? And overall, we mentioned this before, companies should foster a culture of diversity, inclusion through respectful behavior, right? And celebrate diverse contributions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ramona, for sharing your thoughts, and Rosalind too. So thank you so much to all the panelists for your valuable insights and experiences. I resonate with all of you for emphasizing creating an inclusive environment. And now let's transition to the audience Q&A. I know we have a few minutes remaining, so I'm going to read out the questions one by one. So the first question from Tina is that how does a woman in the IT field determine whether a situation is a result of discrimination or just a daily business interaction? Who would like to take that?
Okay, then you pick on someone, Raki.
Yeah, Rosalind, go.
And so I've dealt with it a lot. And so it's kind of one of those things where you do, unfortunately, left wondering if it is discrimination and or not. But I think you have to look at other criterias when you're in an organization, right? I was like, how do you feel every day there? Like, do you feel supported, or is it just a specific instance, right? If it's daily and I feel like we have to also talk about mental health, right? Like if you feel like it's a toxic place where you're not feeling like you're gonna succeed there, then you may have to make a plan to leave. Obviously you can use the support groups like I'm in this Latinas in Cyber like Discord group, and we're always talking about like our different challenges at work and things like that. And sometimes it helps to vent and talk to people. Of course, you can talk to HR, right? That's the official like word, talk to HR to see if that's something. But sometimes that's not. It's not helpful, but I think using just finding support groups, additional support groups helps. And then just kind of reassessing, is this the right organization for me? How do I feel here? Do I see growth here? Do I see a future here? And when I didn't see that, I made the difficult decision of leaving and found an organization that is going to be some more supportive of my goals, where I feel like I could thrive. So it is a difficult way. It is very difficult to see if something is specifically discrimination. It's hard, but I think there's ways to find ways to get support for that. So hopefully I answered your question, Tina.
I can
I
add
think
to that too, if I just to say, sometimes it's consistency, and when you see that the behavior towards you it's only towards you, right, and not towards everyone else. So for example, I know there were things maybe I didn't realize initially, and I'm like, well, maybe everybody gets this question, or maybe everybody's assumed you don't want to travel because you've got family commitments, right? And then other peers are like, nobody's ever asked me that question. Nobody's ever said this to me, right? And you kind of notice these patterns, or you notice this behavior that's really only targeted towards you. Sometimes, like she said, it's not instant, but it's just something that you realize over time.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
they're good points. I want to add one thing here. There is that silver line, right? So be careful of that. You don't want to go into a room and always think about like, oh my God, was that for me? Is that discrimination? You don't. Like, especially in the cybersecurity field, I can tell I work for a global organization where within our cyber team, I think over 80% are male. And most of the times I'm in the room just with males, but I never think of myself as being a female in that room. I always think of myself as being a professional at that table. I will never, and they treat me amazingly, right? So there is no difference. And I don't go there in that room thinking, oh my God, I'm the only female. What am I going to do? This is the instance, and try to, shift that a little bit if you can, right? I mean, there are certain instances where discrimination is obvious, right? So I'm not really talking about that, but also it's important, the mindset that you walk into that room, that you have when you sit at that table, right? So think of you, I'm an expert. I'm going to showcase my expertise there. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I know I don't want to drag the question, but I think Safi also talked about looking at our own biases and clearing them off first. So I think objectively looking at it. So there are two questions with respect to advocating for yourself. I'm going to club them in the interest of time. So Janessa says, I was raised to be a humble and have a hard time self-advocating. What are some of the tips to advocate, yet remain sounding collaborative and humble? And Lisa asks, when it comes to advocating for yourself, what are some of the strategies one can use in their professional line to be own champion? So it's more about self-advocating. I know Madeline, Shafia, you talked about that. Is there something that you would like to
Take it down.
I will say something. I think sometimes as women, the whole thing when we're young, right, is to be a good girl, right? And so sometimes when you grow up and you're taught to be rude, you don't want to be rude, and you want to be polite, and we want to be nice, right? That's what we're supposed to be as women, supposedly, right? So when you come and you're advocating, you're in a situation now where you're advocating for yourself, you're doing something that's natural and it's okay. It doesn't feel natural sometimes. And it feels, am I being combative? Am I being confrontational? Am I not fitting into this role? So sometimes you might feel uncomfortable. And I would say it's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's always my catchphrase, right? And grow in that, because the more you do, the more you exercise that, the more you'll understand that you're not being rude. You are completely in your right to advocate for yourself. And you'll realize that you're actually doing both parties a favor, because otherwise you're making assumptions that they're going to know what you want, right? And that they're going to make decisions. If they're in a position of power where they can make decisions over what you do, what you don't do, right? You want to give them that information. So you want to impart this information to them. And so it's just very you being clear on what you want and what you don't, and setting that. And you can do that in a very respectful and a very conversational way. And if you have a good relationship, which I've always had great relationships with my managers, is they're going to be open and they're going to be happy that you shared that with them, right? Because this is great information. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'm glad you shared this with me. And then they'll ask me more questions on it, right? And then we have a conversation on it. So I would just say, initially, if it does feel, and I sometimes say, I'm sorry initially, right? When I first started, I hope this doesn't come across as me being arrogant or me being, ungrateful or me being X, Y, or Z, whatever you might be feeling. It's okay, recognize it, call it out. But I really feel like I need to, express this to you.
Awesome.
Just to build on what Madeline said, right? Good girl does not equal subservient. It means you have good manners, you're respectful, you are a good person to work with, you are a good professional, you contribute valuably to the company. It does not necessarily equate. I think that's, again, a bias we have built in our mind to some extent is, oh, I'm a woman, I have to be good, I have to behave in a certain manner. No, you can speak up, you can step up, and that is nothing wrong with that. It does not make you a bad person. And sometimes you do need to, someone asked for a practical strategy. I'm not kidding. In the beginning stages of my career, based upon a mentor's, feedback, I had a sticky note on my monitor, which said, "Speak up, slow down." I spoke too fast when I got nervous, right? So one was speak up, and the second one was slow down, so people can actually understand what you're speaking. It was around for many years. And that is how that was my physical cue to actually speak up in a meeting, not stay back, and then actually slow down enough and make sure my point is being heard by others and acknowledged by others. So you can have those different things that will help you, especially in a conversation even like this, whether you walk into a physical meeting or in a virtual environment. Have those things that are your reminders. Someone had a squeegee ball. That was their cue. They always hung on to it because they got nervous when they were speaking. Fine. You have your ways to enhance your confidence. Go for it. And one more thing that helps you would be a strength finder. Go to a strength finder exercise, both on the technical skills as well as your soft skills. You will be amazed at what you will find. And once you know your own strengths, you will advocate better for that. And your mentors and your sponsors will also be able to help once you have the strengths lined up. So yes, we all come from humble beginnings. We were all potentially raised to be good girls. And again, in my mind, good girl does not mean subservience. It means being confident and being able to express your interests very openly and honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing what you just mentioned. And sorry, Raki, I'm going to interfere a little bit here. I know we have only 3 minutes or 2 minutes left. I have seen, we haven't talked about promoting the new generation or supporting the girls that are entering the field. And I saw a couple of questions in the chat and in the Q&A about, give example of how somebody can succeed or entering the field. And I also see one of my students, which I thank you for being here. Her name is Manzi. She's very interested in, launching her career. So we need to support females and younger generation like her. She has a question in particular for Marlene. So Marlene, maybe you wanna address that if you have a minute.
I can read that for you.
Yes.
So I think she's saying, thank you for the insightful comments about being upfront and asking what you want. As for someone who worked in application security for over 2 years and is currently pursuing master's degree in cybersecurity, I strongly believe that this domain has immense potential for growth and innovation. given your expertise and experience as a head of application security in your company, I would love to hear your thoughts on how to excel in this field. Specifically, I'm curious about the current technologies and tools that are being used in the industry, which could help me secure internship opportunities soon and develop my skills.
Great question. Nice to meet you virtually. So, I would say that is a great conversation. I would love to have that conversation. We can talk for a long time on that. So feel free to reach out to me. But a quick answer on that. So especially with all the exploits we're seeing and everything coming out, software, we know, right? Software, securing that software, a lot of what we're seeing, software, a lot of the vulnerabilities, but I think the last stat I saw was somewhere in the 80% of all the things we're seeing, a lot of those vulnerabilities are coming out of software. A lot of the documentation we're seeing out of the White House is how we're securing our software, right? And so, yes, there is a lot that can be done. AppSec it's a kind of a unique thing, right? You've got to understand software engineering, programming, development. You've got to understand the whole DevOps, and you've got to have the cyber background. So you've got to have this combination of skills, which makes it a little difficult, right? So I think making sure that you understand those three major disciplines in the context of SDLC, right? How kind of all these things fit into SDLC. And when you're looking at the SDLC, the Secure Software Development Lifecycle, understanding the different kinds of toolings and scannings, identification, and the different areas that it requires, right? To keep the software secure from before even a line of code is written all the way up to deployment and maintenance of that code, right? So OWASP SAM version 2 is a good place to kind of start and learn and kind of see, from a high level and a structural level, what are all the areas. And again, you can feel free to reach out to me and we can have a further discussion on that.
Yeah, I'm going to take a last question, and then for the remaining ones, I will note the names and then we'll reach out back to you with the answer. So the last one for today is Sandy. She's asking, do you have all the strategies on how your sponsors can be helping to create a community of sponsors, their peers, to advocate on your behalf as well? I think, Ramona, you talked about mentorship and sponsorship. Is there anything that you want to add? Or Rosalind, I think you also talked.
Yes, sure. If I understand the question correctly, so how your sponsor can be helping create a community of sponsors with their peers to advocate on your behalf. Just meet with them. Meet with them, talk to them, encourage that, be the person that takes the initiative and say, hey, I would like, I'm sponsoring this person and I want to, can you do the same? Do you have anyone the same within your department or anyone that that has certain skills for these particular areas, so this way maybe, you encourage others to participate and become sponsors and see the benefit. At the end of the day, what I'm saying, I think it's educate others, right? Educate of the benefits of being a sponsor. That is definitely a win-win situation, right? So that would help. Anyone else, if you have any other suggestions?
I would say, speak up for yourself. There was one phrase that was shared to me with the manager: out of sight, out of mind. So if you want sponsorship and you want your sponsors to go build a group of sponsors to advocate for you, as Ramona said, go talk to them, right? So actually meet them, introduce yourself. So your sponsor then has that equity that they can share among others in their peer group as well. So as long as you're upfront and you are presenting your skills and your strengths, very clearly articulating where you want to go in life, your expectations, your direction, then your sponsor has that equity to actually go build that network within their own peers to help, support you further. So that, out of sight, out of mind sounds very outdated in today's world, but that helps. That truly helps anchor you as an individual who has specific strength that your sponsor can actually sell to others in their peer group. And that's exactly what it is. It's a sales pitch about you, the person. So build that sales pitch, help them build the sales pitch.
Yeah, and like with any sales pitch, right? If you create a win-win situation, that will go a long way, right? So try to create that win-win. See, there are positive impacts and outcomes on both sides. So if you can highlight that, I think the conversation will move further.
No, I know we are at time. Thank you so much for the questions and the panelists for your answers. I think thank you for joining this important conversations. I know we could not cover a couple of questions. I've noted them. We will make sure we'll get back to you, Aishwarya and Julie. So now in the interest of time, let's move to the next session, which is a retreat pillar. So I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for today on guided meditation, Donna Hachia. Donna brings 8 years of experience at Zurich, North America, currently specializing in financial lines with the Policy Center software support team. Just a second.
Hi.
Okay. Beyond her professional role, Donna is devoted meditator, having immersed herself in the practice of meditation and mindfulness the past decade. So without further ado, let's welcome Donna as she guides us through this insightful meditation session. Donna, the floor is yours.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to try to play some music too. So let's see. Can you hear that? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for this honor for being included in this important and empowering program. I was just listening to what you were saying, and it's really important. So thank you. All right, so let's get going. We will take a comfortable seat where you're alert. And if you wish, you can close your eyes or you can have a dull gaze in front of you. And then take a deep breath in. And then slowly exhale. And then we'll start out with the body scan. So we'll start at the top of your head. So relax the top of your head. Relax your forehead. Relax your eyes. Relax your nose. Relax your cheeks and your jaw. Relax your lips. Relax your chin. Relax your neck. Relax your shoulders. Relax your forearms. Relax your elbows. Relax your wrists. Relax your hands and your fingers. Relax your upper back. Relax your middle back. Relax your lower back. Relax your chest. Relax your belly. Relax your pelvis. Relax your bottom. Relax your thighs. Relax your knees. Relax your shins and your calves. Relax your ankles. And relax your feet and your toes. So now we're just going to focus on feeling our breath as it moves in and out of our body. We're not thinking about it. We're not adjusting it. We're just feeling it as it naturally occurs. And you can do this wherever it occurs most strongly. You can notice it at the tip of your nose. You can notice it at your chest or at your tummy. So you're going to just notice your breath as it moves in and out of your body, as you can feel it. And then when you get a thought, and you will get lots of thoughts continuously, just acknowledge you're having your thought, and then just move back to feeling your breath. So just feel your breath. Focusing on feeling your breath, and just let go of all your to-do lists. You've got nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just for these moments, we're just sitting here together. We're just feeling our breath. Just feel your breath. And if you get a thought, you can kind of picture them like clouds in the sky. Just watch them and just let them float by and don't attach to them. Just return to your breath. And if it feels a little strange for you to focus on your breath, you can just focus on the music or focus on any sounds that you hear. Then again, if you get caught up in thoughts, just acknowledge you're having a thought and just return to the focus of sound. Just feel your breath. And if you like, you could put your hand on your chest. The power of touch can be really strong, even if it's your own. It could be very calming. Just let everything go and feel your breath as it does what it does naturally. And if you have a thought, just see it come and just let it go. Let it drift away. You can think about everything later. And your breath is always available to you. All you need to do is pause, take a minute, breathe. And you'll always have that calm center. We all have it within us. We just don't notice it sometimes because we get so caught up in everything else that's going on. And just feel that freedom of just letting everything else go. Not having to worry about anything. Just feeling your breath. And see if you can find that calm center within you. It's okay if you have a thought. You're not doing anything wrong. Our brains were made to think, but we don't need to attach to them. Just let it go and focus back on your breath. And for these last few moments, we'll do a gratitude exercise. So think of something that you're grateful for right now in this moment. It could be something little, could be something big, just anything. What are you grateful for right now? Now try to think of something else that you're grateful for. Is it something that happened? Something you're looking forward to? Be really specific. What else are you grateful for right now? And let's think of one more thing that we're grateful for. It could be a person, it could be a pet, anything. Just picture it in your mind and allow yourself to smile. What else are you grateful for? Let's take one more last deep breath together. Inhale. And then slowly exhale. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. If you want, stretch up. Remember, you can always come back to your breath. Just need to take a pause. And it's always with you. It's always there with you. You can always find your calm center. So thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Donna, for guiding us through that rejuvenating meditation. I already feel fresh.
Good.
Thank you so much.
This was
It's very
wonderful,
difficult to
Donna.
control the thoughts.
And you can let them go. Give them a break.
Yeah. I love the idea of putting them as clouds. That really helped me personally when I was doing this. So appreciate that.
Yeah, funny enough, somebody was texting me during the meditation and my one eye opened to my text message. Guilty here, but the person who she's not the current president of the ISACA Chicago chapter, she told me I cannot meditate. I cannot focus myself. So Alison, thank you for being here, by the way, and supporting us. She's very supportive of all our initiatives and especially of SheLeadsTech. So thank you for being here. Maybe you want to connect with Donna and she can teach you some tips and tricks to stay focused on meditation.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much, Ramona. Definitely need to.
Thank you,
No
Donna.
worries. Thank you so much. So let's dive into our next segment. It's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Kat Fitzgerald. She's based in Chicago and a natural creature of winter. Kat brings a unique touch to her work, defending systems using OSS, magic spells, and the charm of dancing flamingos. Honeypots and refrigerators are just a couple of her favorite things. A fun fact that I learned about Kate during this preparation is that she rescues feral Pop-Tarts and has the only Pop-Tart sanctuary in the Chicago area. And in addition to her fascinating pursuits, Kat serves as a lead organizer for B-Sides Chicago. Welcome, Kat. I think she's going to share her insights on the road less infosec traveled. Kate, stage is yours.
And you, okay, there, because I can't present, because you were presenting. It won't let me.
Only one person at a time. But
Yeah.
so.
So let me. Oh, it says host only. I can't share right now.
Just a second.
Can I change to, oh, I can change it to host and panelists. Okay,
Yeah,
now let me see.
Yeah, you're the host now, so you should be able to share.
It's still not letting me. Why is it not letting me? Try that. Ah, there we go. And
We can see your screen.
awesome. Awesome. Now I have to put it in front of me so I know where I'm looking. Great. Well, welcome everybody. I'm happy to be here. I got up at 3 o'clock this morning in New York and had to catch a very early flight and then just got to Chicago, drove here, now I'm here. So yes, we're going to have some fun. And this is actually going to be an interesting two-part talk. But this is who I am. She already introduced me, so it's just in the slide. But there's one little thing down here at the bottom where it says, I'm also a photographer. And it will make sense, I promise. But one thing I will mention, my first DEF CON was DEF CON number 3. There were 16 speakers there. So in other words, I've been doing this for a really, really long time. And we're going to talk about how I got there. But then I'm also going to give you some tips on how you can get to the same place because we're going to talk about some other things. I'm also a drummer, but this was a problem. I went to change my password. So it said choose a password. I put hi-hat and it said password cannot contain symbols. Haha, you're all supposed to laugh because I'm a drummer. Anyway, Some of the things I'm going to talk about today, obviously the views and opinions are all my own, nothing to do with any of my employers or past or present. I work for that big G company right now, but you'll see where I got here. And we're going to talk about two things. The road, how did I get here? But also, I'm going to show you some tips on how you can really improve your resume, your cyber skills, and so on. Where I started, how I stumbled into InfoSec, because I was not a security major. And you'll see that in a minute. All the obstacles, especially being a woman in this industry back in the 80s. Yes, I'm that old. So we'll talk about all of that. So, oh, and I have to share one thing that happened this past week. I was in New York because I was there to help run the Women at Google Summit. And if you can see me, oops, it's my background. I have this kind of flowy cape thing on. And I was wearing it when I was going to be emceeing. But I was walking from one building to the other. And when I was walking into one of our buildings and the wind came up and my cape went out, and I walked in and 3 security guards all looked at me and they said, all you need is a theme song. The way it looked on camera as you were walking in, if you had a theme song, this would be great. And all I could think of was, wow, empowerment. I'm going to get a theme song. But it really made me think about this entire week, this entire month, and everything about empowering women. So anyway, where did I start? Well, I started in photography. See, I told you it might link, but I was a music major. I was not a computer science major. I was actually a music major in jazz composition. Well, back in 1979, God, I hate admitting these years, MIDI came out, musical instrument digital interface. They said, you have to take a computer course. So I took one. I went, wow, this is really cool. There's probably more money in this than there is in being a drummer. So I had to take computers and I started taking them and I really enjoyed it. And my point here, the one thing I want to say when it comes to education, and remember, this is just my opinion, but I've been interviewing candidates for years and years and years at all the companies I've worked at. One of the things that I have found is I have senior people that have masters in cybersecurity written on their resume, and I'll ask them, how could you tell me how you would secure a Linux server? And they'll kind of scratch their head. They'll say, change the root password, and kind of pause and hem and haw, and they don't have anything else. So my question is, what are they really teaching in these master programs? You know, let's get back to the basics, but we'll talk about that. In my path, when I left college, you know, I got a top secret clearance at 21 years old, right out of college. But it was challenging. Why? Because I was surrounded by men. I was lucky. I had a boss who was a woman. Back in the 80s, this was unheard of. So here I was in the government clearance, and I have a female as a boss. This is going to be awesome. And it did. It turned out very, very well for me in the very beginning. The office, as you can imagine, definitely male majority. And the one thing I will say is I was always having to prove myself, walking into a meeting, walking into a presentation where people didn't take me seriously at the very beginning until maybe 5 or 10 minutes into whatever I was presenting, because they would go, oh, I guess she does know what she's talking about, because they would assume that, you know, well, what could a woman know? And of course, 80s, But even today, this still happens sometimes. And I've had people say to me after a presentation, well, I'm glad I stayed. When you first came out to do the presentation, I thought, oh, you're probably just going to do some marketing stuff or something like that. And I'm going, really? That's what's going to come of this. Oh, well. But I learned that I had to stand up for myself more and more and more. And you heard this from the panelists earlier. You heard how you want to be that person in the room. You want to stand up. I'm going to give you an example of one that, well, your mileage may vary. Maybe you don't want to do it the same way I did, but I'll explain it in just a second. So what I like to call the teen years, I left the government. I left the government, went into the private sector, sort of. The cool thing was when I went into the private sector, my boss was a retired FBI agent. So this was going to be really, really interesting because I was going to learn a lot from him. And even though he was a guy, he saw me doing a presentation at a security conference once, and he said, I want to hire that woman. So if you've never done a presentation at a security conference or any conference, I'm going to give you some tips later on in this talk on how to do that. Okay, keep that in mind. So my first day at this new job with my former FBI agent boss, he comes to me and he says, yeah, I'm going to give you the whirlwind tour. And he did for a week. And then he goes, I'm going on vacation. I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks and you won't be able to get me. I know you're going to do fine, but here's the problem. The president of the company is having a meeting with Sun Microsystems. Anybody here old enough to remember Sun Microsystems? Anyway, they're going to be meeting with some of the VPs from Sun Microsystems because they're working on this big project and we need some input from security. So you're going to the meeting and you're going to be representing me. And I said, I'm going to a meeting with the president. I'm 26 years old and you want me to go meet with the president and vice presidents of Sun? This was kind of crazy, but I did. So I went to this meeting and I'm sitting in this meeting and they're all talking about golf and things, and it's all men. Oh, well. And I'm sitting there and they gave me a packet when I came in. They gave me a packet to read through and it's about the project. So I'm reading through it, and I'm going, this doesn't make any sense. And it's going to be $2 million. Now, $2 million today for IT stuff doesn't sound like a lot, but back in the 80s, actually it was late 80s, this is a lot. And so we're talking about this. They're all, talking golf. I'm reading through it and I'm going, $2 million for this project, and it's not going to work. I said, excuse me. And I tried to ask a question. They said, we'll get to you in a minute, Kat. Okay. I went back to reading through it. They're all talking. And I'm going, excuse me, 5 minutes later. They said, just a second, we'll get there just a minute, Kat. And this goes on for another 5 or 10 minutes. And I kept trying to get their attention. And I finally got to the point where I stood up. I tossed the packet in the middle of the conference table. I looked at my president and I said, I used a word that I won't say here because this is being recorded, but I said, you're an effing idiot and you're going to throw away $2 million on something that's not even going to work. And I turned around and walked out. I went down to my desk and I started packing everything up because, of course, I am now fired, right? The phone rings and it's his assistant. It was about 20 minutes later and it's his assistant. And she said he would like to see you. I figure I'm going to be fired on the spot. I go up, I walk into his room and he shuts the door and he says, if you ever do that again in front of vendors, in front of other employees, in front of anybody. You'll be out that door faster than he can spin. And then he stops and he goes, now, and he hands me the packet. Why am I an idiot? Okay, let me show you. And I went through and I showed him. He said, all right, this took about 30 minutes. And about 30 minutes later, he says, fine, the project's yours. But if you fail, you're gone. Okay. The project was supposed to take about a year. It took us 6 months. We did it for $400,000 instead of $2 million. And it worked flawlessly. I can't go into what it was because there was some government stuff involved and everything. But would I do it differently? Slightly. Because, okay, probably throwing it down in the middle of the meeting in front of everybody, calling him an idiot, probably not the best thing to do. I should have figured out a way to take him aside and talk to him and have said, this is premature, this is wrong, you're going to waste the company's money and it's simply not going to work. But I'm glad I did it because, of course, this worked out for me. There were no issues, worked flawlessly. And after a couple of years, I decided to leave. And well, I went back into the government at this point. Why? Because the government was fun. I was working for a government agency. And here's another interesting thing. This was now in the late 90s, late 90s, middle 90s, I forget now. But I was at the Pentagon and I was working with, and I won't say the country, but I was working with some foreign Air Force officers. And we were working on a project together. And I made a comment on a Friday to one of the admins there that my girlfriend was coming up from Atlanta to visit for the weekend. It was going to be a long weekend. And she said, oh, your girlfriend, you guys going to do, single women's weekend? I said, no, this is my girlfriend, if you haven't quite figured it out from my background. And they said, oh, your girlfriend. Well, how nice. You'll have a great time. The officers with this foreign government Air Force overheard me. The Tuesday after I got in, or after the long weekend, I got back in. And I met with the officers again, and one of them, I really, this it blows my mind that this happened, but we're in an elevator. He pulls down his turtleneck. This was in January. It was cold. He pulls down his turtleneck and there's a hickey. And he says, I told my girlfriend about you. She wants to meet you. And I'm just going, what part of being a lesbian means I want to have a threesome with you? What? This is insane. And would you have ever done this with a man? No. This kind of stuff is nuts. So it was time to move on. My point to all of this is you have to stand up for yourself. And yes, this was reported. Yes, disciplinary action was taken. There was a lot going on. There's more to it. Find me in social and maybe I'll tell you the rest of it. But I did move on and, I left the government. I went to healthcare. I always said, never give up. But I gave up. Why? I worked with a group of men where they were completely isolating me out. And I found out I was a quota hire. I literally was. My boss at the time admitted it to me. So I said, well, then I think I'll leave. Although that was the best decision I made. Why? I went to that big fruit company in California. You can make a difference if you stand up, but sometimes you do have to move on to keep your career going, because you have to realize when you're up against a wall that is just not going to change. And in this case, it was, but then I went to that fruit company in California. Again, I lucked out. a woman boss. It was amazing. It was absolutely one of the best decisions I've ever made. I loved it there. I was there for 5 years. The only reason I left was because there was a reorg. My boss left and I got a new boss. And the new boss, who was a woman, didn't work out. And I'll give you a tip. You can always figure that. I'm sure you've all heard this before when it comes to managers. If you're in a meeting with a manager and they ask you, so have you figured out how you're going to do this project I assigned to you? And you say, yes, here it is. And you slide a single piece of paper across the table. And on that paper is written, please consider this my letter of resignation. My last day will be this day. And she looks at it and goes, what? Is this a joke? What? And she's completely blindsided. If a manager doesn't know that you want to leave, they're a bad manager. And what is the saying that we like? You don't typically leave a company, you leave your management. And that's why I left that company. Bosses aren't always friends. They're human too. So keep that in mind. Male, female, doesn't matter. Sometimes you do get very lucky. I've been lucky in my career, but not all the time. So in that case, I left again for the right reason. And always remember, when you're afraid to share your ideas, especially, somebody once said in a meeting, let's make a film with a tornado filled with sharks. I really wish I had been in that meeting, whoever it was that said, let's do this. But the point is, you have to step up and speak for yourself. And before I go to part 2 of this talk, I'll just say one simple thing. This happened again in New York last Sunday. It was beautiful. It was 75 degrees out and sunny. The rest of the week, it was rainy and 50. But it was beautiful on Sunday. And I was walking through the park there, Madison Square Park, and there was this little jazz trio playing. And the drummer got up because he was going to go walk around and try to collect money because that's how they were playing. And I looked at the drummer. I said, hey, want me to sit in while you're collecting money? He goes, are you a drummer? I said, yes, I am. And he goes, go for it. And I did. And I sat in and I started playing. And now here are all these people taking video, tourists, I guess, taking pictures and videos and so on. The point is, what if I had just walked by or just stood there and listened to them? Instead, I made some new friends. I took a chance. And that's the point of all of this. Stand up for yourself because you never know when it's going to actually work to your advantage. And most of the time, it will. Okay, so now I want to take you to a new part because one of the ways I got here is, well, I figured out security is fun. It really is. And toys are fun. And when you add those together, you get to break things, right? You get to hack stuff. So I want to show you how to put a home security lab on your resume. Because that's one of the things, again, as someone who interviews candidates for probably the last 20 years of my career, when I ask a candidate, how do you stay current? And what I get is, I'm on a couple of subreddits or I'm on a couple of Twitter threads or something like that, instead of I've got a lab in the cloud, or I've got a lab at home, or I've got some VMs on my laptop. That's what I want to see because that shows the initiative and the drive of a true security. I want to know, I want to hack things. So I like breaking things, I like building things, and I like breaking things that I build. So let's talk about those because in this community of cybersecurity and IT and everything else, learning never ends. I'm 63 years old and I haven't stopped learning. I learn every day. Here's a new Raspberry Pi 5. Got a little NVMe via the USB, but I've got another one that has a Pi hat with PCI on it so I can plug the NVMe directly into it. And now I've got a new toy to play with. Why? Because it fits in my purse and it's a honey pot. I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just talk about your home lab. What should you do in a home lab to get further ahead? Well, virtualize everything. I'm going to show you some examples here. Yes, I'm going to talk about, I just saw this in the post, try Hack Me Learning and Hack the Box. I'm going to talk about those in just a second, okay? But get Proxmox. If you haven't virtualized things with Proxmox, absolutely get it. And a couple of comments I see in the questions here too. Get Raspberry Pi 4s and 5s. You know why? You could virtualize them. ESXi works on a Raspberry Pi 4 and a Raspberry Pi 5. It's cool. VirtualBox is another one. You've all heard of it, but yes, get Pis. I just got 2 Pi 5s. I have 29 other Raspberry Pis that I use for all kinds of things, and I'll show you in a second. OpenWRT. Here's another example. This is my hotel AP. I take this around with me. Why? It's a Pi 4, and I use it so I can connect to all my devices and have, this is the only one that connects to the hotel Wi-Fi. Nothing else does, and all my devices connect through that. And it's got a nice VPN that connects through to my hosted VPNs, and I just use OpenWRT on it. It's a great way to learn new techniques if you haven't done this, okay? OpenSense is a great firewall that runs on these. I wouldn't run it on a Pi. I would run it on something a little bit bigger, on one of your Proxmox VMs or something. And we'll talk about some other random bits and some extras coming up in a second. But here's a few pictures of, I've got these NUCs. I can't pick it up because it's all wired down, but they're Intel NUCs. They're about that big. And I run, hard drives that are connected through USB. And that's how I virtualize things and change them up all the time. These things are like $300 or cheaper. If you get, this one happens to have like 64 gig of RAM in it and a 2 terabyte SSD that's on the inside. And then I have those 2 4 terabyte hard drives on the outside, and I can virtualize the heck out of it because it's got this one has a 4-core i7 or an i9. I forget what's in this one. And I run Proxmox on it. And there's just an example. If you have never played with Proxmox, get it. I made my slides in such a way that if you grab, and I'll share my slides with the team, but grab screenshots because I put the full URL in all of the slides so you can see what they are. This is an example of some of the other things I do with Pis. The one at the top with the big fan on it, that's the one I virtualized, and there's a 2 terabyte SSD underneath it, so I can virtualize it with the ESXi. It does get a little hot, so that's why I had to put the fan on it. There's my Kubernetes cluster that actually runs on a battery that is on the bottom. It's a battery pack, and this will actually fit in my purse. And I can walk around security conferences and do fun things with it. You can't quite see it, but there's Pi hats on there that do power over Ethernet, and that's what allows me to run them over the battery pack there. Please share the slides. Yes, I will share the slides with the team and they'll share them somewhere. The slides will also be on my GitHub page, and I'll share that at the very end of this. I make my own cameras with Pi Zeros. Why? Because I set them up all around the place because I travel a lot. So who needs to worry about spending a fortune on cameras and security when you can make one out of a Pi Zero for like $20? So you can get 5 cameras in your house and they're all sharing to a server somewhere. So even if somebody breaks in and steals my cats that are sleeping right next to me right now, I just looked down and they're both cats on the floor. You've got pictures of them and you can hunt them down and get them. There's just another Pi 4 sitting there. Pies are so much fun, but you can do a lot with them. So get a few and start playing. Okay, this is some of the network gear that I use. The reason I throw these pictures up, I get this stuff for $5 on eBay. The Netgear ProSafe, the one that says 2.5 on it, that was $5, that particular switch, and it's a smart switch. It's got management in it, it's got SNMP, it's got all kinds of stuff. I can set up VLANs on it, and it has power over Ethernet. $5. Geez. The Wi-Fi routers, those were $5 or $10 on eBay. Get yourself the one at the bottom is a USB to Ethernet. Get some USB to Ethernet. They're $5 or $10 on Amazon or whatever. Why? Because when you virtualize those NUCs or a Raspberry Pi, plug them in and make multiple networks and make multiple VLANs and start learning VLANs if you haven't learned VLANs yet. Okay, and I run OpenWRT and DDWRT on these various routers. I've probably got a dozen. Well, maybe not. I'm looking now, going 1, 2, 3. There's at least 3 that I can see in sight Wi-Fi routers. And what do? They mimic popular SIDs that might be in shops around the area, because as people walk by, they might connect to it, and they're great to gather data and see what people are willing to do. Okay, but let's say you bought all this hardware. Now what? Well, install all the things. OSs come in all shapes and sizes. So start installing Linux. Start installing Windows. Plan, unplan, replan. When you get into building a home lab, it's all about learning. It's not about having a specific, oh, I want to do this thing. Take a weekend and go, I want to learn Kubernetes. How many people? Does everybody here know Kubernetes? I'm guessing not everybody does. I'm going to show you how to do Kubernetes in 2 seconds. Don't forget Windows. No, I didn't spell it wrong. That's how oh well. But you can go to the eval center and you can download server versions of Windows. Download older versions. Get some old ones, some new ones, set them up, take snapshots, and then you can just reload them from the snapshots, because they typically run for 180 days, and then just reload them from the snapshots so you can do all of your training and learning and so on. Okay. I use Wazoo. It's an open source monitoring package. It's a SIM. It has agents on it, because you need to monitor the stuff you're doing. Because when you're hacking and doing computer security, you're going to want to see what kind of alerts does it set off. What would happen in the SIM? What would happen in the SOC if I were a SOC analyst, and so on. It's wazoo.com. It's an open source product. I just happen to think it's one of the best out there. Okay. Now, here's a quick how to set up a Kubernetes cluster in 5 minutes or less. I had 3 extra Raspberry Pis. One of them was a B+, so it has the extra Wi-Fi and Ethernet and so on. It's Rev 1.3. The others were older. They were just Model 3 or Model Bs. So I stacked them all up. I then ran this command, which is ketchup or ketchup. Install. There was my main server, and it installed the latest version on the main server. And then set up your environment. And then these commands, this was my master, if you will. Okay, so that was the Pi top. And in that 4 stack that you saw earlier, it was the top one. And then I ran 3 more commands to set up the other 3 worker nodes. Now, you might notice something, that off to the right, it shows the runtime version. The master is running 1.4, while the worker nodes are running 1.3. Oops. How do we fix that? Simple. Rejoin it and just change the channel and mark it as latest. That's how easy it is to create a Kubernetes cluster. And now, lo and behold, if you look, One of them was still updating when I did that, but 3 of them are now 1.4. One of them is still 1.3 because it hadn't finished when I ran that, but they all updated to 1.4. This is a couple years old last time I did this. I need to do a newer version because Kubernetes is much newer. Okay, so you get the point here that in 5 minutes, I had a working Kubernetes cluster. And then you can start playing, and this is on Raspberry Pis. 4 Raspberry Pis, $100 if you buy Raspberry Pi 3s. And then I'm up and running. I'm now learning Kubernetes for the weekend. Okay. And okay, I'm just looking at some of the comments and questions real quick. Oh, I love that. Advantage women. Yes, we get purses. It does work out because if you ever see me at a conference walking around, and I will always have my purse, you can pretty much guarantee that there's probably a wireless honeypot in my purse running off a battery. And with the new one, with the NVMe hat on it, so the NVMe will plug in directly. The battery usage and everything, I've already been testing it. It runs for over a day while it's in my purse and it doesn't get very hot at all. Okay, so keep that in mind. Anyway, there was when they finally caught up and all of them were of the current version, and you can start to play with Kubernetes and, you know, there's a 5-minute thing. But what else do you do with your lab? Well, VulnHub is a great way to experiment with vulnerabilities and look at that and so on. Another one, Metasploitable. If you've all heard of Metasploit, but have you heard of Metasploitable? Metasploitable is the version that you're going to hack with Metasploit. This one is really cool, the detection lab. I'll show you some details in a second, but it's got a Proxmox deployable package where you just do Proxmox deploy and it'll build the whole thing in your Proxmox environment, all the VMs for you. And I'll show you what that'll do in just on the next slide. WebGoat is a great project to work with. It's a vulnerable web host. Juice Shop is another one. Home Assistant. Why do I put Home Assistant up here? Well, if you've never played with Home Assistant, it is the, think of it as Amazon, you know, Echoes or Google Nest or Dots and things like that, because I want to do it with my Raspberry Pis. I don't want to share all my data with these companies, okay? But HomePwn will allow you to play with Home Assistant and possibly do some hacking with your IoT devices. That's why I put in my bio, IoT and refrigerators are some of my favorite things. My neighbors, I live in a condo complex, my neighbors hate me. I'm always kind of messing with their, I tell them change their Wi-Fi passwords. The problem is they'll just change the number at the end of it. I'm going, well, that's really stupid because all you did was change the 2 to a 3. Anyway, SDR, software defined radio. This is awesome. Why? You can build your own Flipper Zero. When the Flipper Zero came out, yes, it's fancy, it's fun. Everybody, it's like the Script Kiddie toy of hacking Wi-Fi and RFID and NFC and so on. You want to learn it the right way. Really, how did they build that? Get software-defined radio and put it on a Raspberry Pi. Then you can start to learn, how do you hack Wi-Fi? How do you hack NFC? How do you hack any of this stuff that is, you know, key fobs and so on? So take a look at these packages because this is what's going to get you noticed. You put all of this stuff on a resume, what you do with it. This weekend, I built a Kubernetes cluster. I installed WebGoat in a container within the Kubernetes cluster. I launched it. I then hacked it. And this is what I learned. Put that in a blog post to help others, as everyone was saying, but also put that on a resume. Because when I see a resume like that, I'm going, this is somebody I want to hire. Okay. This is the detection lab thing. This is when you deploy it with Proxmox, you get a logger system, you get a Windows server, you get another Windows server, and you get another. And one's the domain controller, and it comes all configured. Everything's on there. And now you can start testing with it, all because you had Proxmox on a NUC and you launched it, and you can play with this. I've gotten sidetracked for an entire weekend playing with this because there's so many things you can learn and hack and grow with. Okay, so take a look at this and get it started. Now what? Part 3. You prefer Raspberry Pi, but I found a good what is this? Somebody had Arduino versus Raspberry Pi. Arduinos are completely different. They're not going to be the same for what you're trying to do. It totally depends on the projects you're trying to really accomplish. I don't want to get into that too much at this point. Also, Parrot OS versus Kali. If you've been a Kali fan, I happen to like Parrot OS better. I can use it as a desktop because it has all the tools, but it has all the hacking tools as well. Tenable. Get Tenable, install it on your home environment because it's free for home use. OpenVAS is another vulnerability scanning system. It came from the original Nessus. It was a branch off of that. So take a look at that. Ignore that. That's old. I have to remove that because that was a bug in Kali Linux. Then in order to get OpenVAS running on an older version of Kali Linux, you had to do some extra commands because it was misconfigured. Oops. I've already mentioned Kubernetes with that Ketchup, K3S. K3S is a stripped down version of Kubernetes that will run easier in your home environment. You don't need the full version of Kubernetes. You can run K3S, which is lighter weight, easy to work with, but still teaches you all the concepts of Kubernetes. Okay. Come on. What happened? Okay, where's my text? What's going on here? Oh, that's so weird. Well, those were some of the commands. Why is it blank? I think the text is black or something. It'll be clear when you get it. These are some of the things that once you get your lab installed, and you start to read online articles and so on. Here was one I read about a SPIF-based zero trust for microservices. Ooh, and it gave me all kinds of tools and commands and so on that I could use to do some hacking over the weekend. Another one I found, container and software security scanner called Trivy. So I set up Kubernetes and then I decided to play with this Trivy tool that I found in a magazine. 10 Ansible tricks. That was cool. But Nikto still works. Some of us that have been around for a while, we remember Nikto web scanner from years ago. It still works and it's great to test websites. So set that up. Google Tsunami security scanner. I could put that out there. So this gives you ideas because you're sitting here going, well, Kat, we're going to put up a lab, but what do we do with it? Start searching for just articles in magazines. I get Linux Format, I get Admin Magazine, I get, Linux Pro, I get the Raspberry Pi magazine. So there's always going to be articles in all of these on things you can play with. Honeypots. If you have heard me talk before, you know I love honeypots. Right now, I have 27 of them installed around the world. These are some of the ones I recommend. You can grab a screenshot, but I'll make the slides available so you don't have to. Open Canary, one of my favorite, very, very flexible, configurable, and so on. ADHD, I'll show you that in a minute. It's a bad name. Oops, there went one of my kitties. Honey Badger. Honey Badger is very cool. You know, the one thing you learn in cybersecurity is you never hack back because could be a crime. We don't want to hack back. But what we do want to do sometimes, Honey Badger is a very cool tool where if I can get an attacker to run it on their system, it will geolocate them and tell me exactly where they are. Pretty close too. Take a look at it. You'll see. Community Honey Network, there's just a lot of them. Honey Pie is a little honey pot that runs on a Raspberry Pi. Take a look at that one. Canary Tokens, if you haven't played with Canary Tokens, start playing with them. They're awesome. You can embed Canary Tokens in AWS, in Word docs, and PDFs, and all kinds of things. Okay. Anyway, the very last bullet down at the bottom where it says lots more, that's a list that this guy maintains on all the current honeypots out there. And they go around and find them. So it's a great thing to do. But when you're thinking about honeypots, what about the real thing? What about setting up a Windows server and enabling RDP on it and put some fake documents on it? Put some fake documents that have Canary tokens in them. And then see if people connect to the RDP server. Interesting. This is just a screenshot from ADHD. What it is it has all of those honeypots installed. And then, oh, do I have a favorite honeypot? Yes, Open Canary. Start with that one. But ADHD, you can actually run these in this, it's a VM, and you run it on Proxmox or something, and don't deploy it. You don't want to deploy it. What you want to do, out to the wild, you want to run it in a VM on your system, and you start playing with the honeypots and seeing what they do. Okay, so take a look at that one for sure. Like see the one at the bottom where it says Cowrie, or even the one above it, Canary Tokens. It walks you through how to use the Canary Tokens and so on. So it's a great learning package. Okay, all right. Some of the members in the panel, they were talking about, networking, finding peers and so on. I always say DEF CON, but Diana Initiative, definitely I'll be there this year. I'm on the staff again. I will be running the Career Village this year. So please come to Diana Initiative if you've never been. B-Sides are amazing. Find one in your local environment. I run B-Sides Chicago. I also run the CFP for B-Sides Pittsburgh. So you'll see me in Pittsburgh in July. B-Sides Chicago, November 2nd this year. Get into CFPs and CTFs. Try Hack Me, Hack the Box. If you put that on your resume that you've spent the last year on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, I guarantee you I'm going to be talking to you in much more detail because you're someone I want to interview. All right, here are your key takeaways. It's playtime. Why? Virtualization. Set up containers, Proxmox, play with this stuff. There's no right or wrong. If you break things, so what? You're breaking your lab. Start small, build on it, break it, build it, break it again. Okay? You can get sucked in, so be careful. Don't get too. Some other key takeaways for your mileage may vary. I can spend an entire weekend doing this stuff. You have to be careful. What are your goals? Do you just want to better your cybersecurity? Good. Keep that lab going. But speak up for yourself too. What are the obstacles that you're going to face in your career path? Find your strengths. Know your weaknesses. How do you overcome your weaknesses? Maybe you don't speak up as much. You have a resume. Everyone does. Do you have a resume of your failures? Don't give that to your next potential employer, but maintain a resume of failures because you go back and you learn from it. And always remember, I love this saying, empowered women empower women. So help those around you. Do what you can. This is all about us working together to make a stronger community Here is all of my contact information. You can find me. I'm Rainbow Cat on all the socials, but I'm Evil Cat at rainbowmail.com or even at Google. LinkedIn is just Cat Fitzgerald. Oh, look at that. 1 minute to spare. I'm looking. Are there any any other
There is just one
questions? I
question,
don't see
Kat.
any other questions. Thank you all. I hope you got something from this. I will put these slides on my GitHub. My GitHub repo is also Rainbow Cat, so github.com/rainbowcat. And there's a repository called presentations. I'll upload this as soon as we're done here, and I'll also give it to the team here so they can share it.
Yeah, Kat, there is just one question from Julie. I think it's in the Q&A section. I'm going to read that for you. Please share tips on how your submissions can get selected to present at a conference or a summit.
I do have some example presentation CFPs. I typically get very, very good responses on mine because they're very detailed. And as a reviewer, the one thing I will simply say is you cannot put too much detail in a CFP. I'm reading ones that are 4 sentences. Of course, I'm not going to accept that. No. But if you put it in an outline form, that's what we want to see.
No worries. Thank you so much, Kat. I would want to pass on to Ramona and Shafia for some closing remarks.
Yes. Thank you, Raki, and thank you, Kat. Actually, I was part of a panel discussion monitored by Lisa. She's in the audience as well, for B-sides, and I got those glowy cat ears from you.
Yes.
They were so much fun.
We will have them again this year, both at Diana and at B-sides.
Wonderful. They are so much fun. I was looking around, turn off my camera, looking around in the house if I can find them. But my little one, I think, she got hold of them. So, okay, thank you everyone for attending today. It was an amazing session. I really hope that everyone will do something special for themselves, either today or over this weekend. As we mentioned today in the closing remarks, we all recognize the significant impact that diversity brings to our industry. When we have a diverse workforce, including more women, it enriches the perspectives, ideas, and solutions that women can bring to the table. Now, we recognize that over the past year, progress has been made. But with the fast pace inherent to our industry, my advice would be to cultivate a mindset that embraces challenges and view those roadblocks as opportunities for all of us to learn and advance. Okay, thank you. With that, Shafia, do you have any final remarks or comments?
I thank everyone for attending, and this was a great partnership. Women in cybersecurity is focused on increasing diversity, but it is partnering with our community partners, such as SheLeadsTech. We really bridge those gaps that we might have in our local area. And Kat just nailed it. Today, the focus was all about empowered women, empower women. So, empower yourself, learn about yourself, and learn where you can grow so you can help others grow. And we have some great programs to help you there, locally and nationally. Just reach out if you need anything from us. But more importantly, as Ramona said, take some time today or over the weekend for yourself and for your extended tribe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat.
Okay,
And thank you for all the fun.
See you.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Thank you, both of you. I think this was a good session. So,
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to see if I can save the